Public.com presents Leading Indicator, an investing show bringing you insights from some of the sharpest minds in business, finance, and technology. All right, my man, the great Alex Heath of The Verge, joined us now on a big day, the first really big scale social media IPO since Pinterest back in 2019. Reddit, ticker symbol RDDT, here at the floor of the New York Stock Exchange. Alex, I really appreciate your time. The company's valuation, if you were paying attention to the headlines the last few years, we had this big tech boom back in 2021, valuations all over the place, put this company closer to 10 billion. Today we see where shares are priced closer to 6.5 billion. What has kind of happened with the company as you see it over those few years to now go public with a bit of a lower valuation than it was a few years ago?
It is lower, but it's actually a lot higher than they were getting in the private markets, and I think everyone at Reddit is very happy today. I'll put it that way. I think 6+ billion on 800 million in revenue, growing 20%, not net profitable in this market is a pretty generous valuation, frankly. I think what they're doing, which is a shift in strategy over the last couple of years, is riding the generative AI wave and touting this deal with Google where they're getting a couple hundred million over a few years. They want to do more of these licensing deals so that Reddit user data will feed products like ChatGPT. Sam Altman is obviously one of their largest shareholders. He was the CEO at one point, briefly. So I would say what we're probably seeing is a little bit of the AI ZERP. I don't know. I feel like ZERP has been self-contained to AI these days, where we have these just really frothy valuations and insane appetite across stocks. Now it's concentrating on companies that are leaning into AI, and so Reddit's done that in a smart way, and investors seem to be very receptive to it.
And so, I mean, are you surprised to see the demand, the interest? And I suppose also, are you surprised to see a company like this dip its toe into the pool of going public after a few years of what's been, to put it frankly, a bit of a dried up market for IPOs?
Yeah. I'm not surprised they're going out now. They finally found a window where, everything's pretty much ripping right now and there seems to be appetite. There was an IPO yesterday with another AI angle, Astera, I believe, that ripped. So I think they're taking advantage of the window they have and they wanted to go public a couple years ago. So now they need to get out. So um, I am surprised, I will say. I'm surprised by the valuation. Um, because I think if you are investing into this IPO, you have to consider Reddit's risk factors and its profile as an independent company. And some reporting I've done and others have done is just how reliant Reddit is on Google, both for traffic and now for money. And Google, as we know, is going through a major reinvention of what it thinks search can be with AI. And right now, a very significant portion of Reddit's traffic and its growth in traffic is coming from Google SEO. So, do you want to be investing in a business long term that is really more of a surf on another platform versus something that is a destination? Not to say they don't have destination traffic, but just like put a pin on this, they used to bucket traffic internally at Reddit under direct and indirect meant Google. So, Google is by far their largest referral. And I know for a fact, because I've talked to people inside Reddit, that a lot of the traffic growth that they saw in the back half of last year that they're using to kind of tell this IPO story was directly the result of a Google algorithm change. It had nothing to do with the core Reddit product. It was because Google just started sending more traffic to Reddit. So should investors actually think about a company that is that dependent for growth on another platform? I don't think we're seeing a lot of that analysis and reflection this week during the IPO.
Are there other risks you see to this that are outside of the connections, the tentacles that connect to Alphabet and Google?
A huge percentage of Reddit usage is porn. I would say I've heard it could be anywhere up to 40% of Reddit usage is porn. So when you think about an advertising business, how does that work at scale? How much does that hamstring the growth of the advertising business? That's something I haven't seen in the S1 document. It's not something I've seen investors really asking. I would say the two biggest things about Reddit to better understand if you're an investor are the Google dependency and porn in that order.
Talk to me more broadly about the advertising model. I mean, can it work for social media right now if you're not Meta or Google? I Maybe you throw TikTok in there, which
Yeah.
I think compared to the others is still a small slice of the pie. But you got new entrants that are trying to make their way in. Alex, you know the space as well as anyone.
Yeah, I mean, and I've covered Snap, since they went public very in depth, and they were considered to be at the time maybe the first real challenger to the digital ad duopoly in the public markets, which is Meta and Google. And we've seen how that's gone. It's very hard to achieve scale when you have such entrenched large platforms with millions of advertisers each. Um, and I think that's going to be tough for Reddit as well. Probably not as much as Snap because more of Reddit can be monetized. It's not a lot of private messaging. But again, the porn is an issue, and also what data can they actually give marketers that's valuable in terms of being able to target. And they don't have a ton of video inventory. Video is really where all digital ad spend is moving. And so Reddit they've been trying to do their own version of TikTok, really to not a ton of success. They really need to make the product more video native, I think, for advertising to really be the kind of scale that they hope for. It's going to be tough. I mean, we really haven't seen anyone build meaningful scale in digital ads since Facebook and Google.
Last year, 2023, Reddit had a net loss of about $90 million. That was down from the year before, 2022, a net loss of about 158. Cumulative loss, more than $715 million. Talk to me about the company's sort of path towards profitability. And is all this a little bit of a red flag, given how it's done the last several years before now entering public markets?
Yeah, I mean, Steve Huffman and Reddit management will tout that they were profitable on an adjusted basis at the back half of last year. That doesn't take into account things like stock-based compensation, which is a whole nother topic, how companies kind of hide this stuff. Um, Again, I'm surprised that Reddit is getting this valuation when it's not actually net profitable. They have to get there to be able to control their own destiny. I think they know that. And maybe they do. I think their cost structure is better than Snap's. I don't think it's quite as expensive. So if they can scale revenue, it seems like profitability will soon follow. So if they can continue to grow revenue, then it's fine. But again, all this traffic, not all of it, but a large part of it is coming from Google's own ranking. So their fate is very much tied to the whims of Google, and I think a way that investors don't fully appreciate.
So there's always an AI angle, like you said. I think it's relatively a very small piece of Reddit's current revenue, these sort of data licensing deals. But what part of the overall kind of, let's talk about that deal specifically with Google,
Yeah.
this idea of taking the user data, taking this history base that Reddit has, helping inform AI models. What part of that all conversation do you think deserves more attention, especially now that this was a deal that I think was just announced in February? It's pretty recent,
Yeah.
but it's not hasn't been core to Reddit's business model over the last 19 years. But I'd imagine, Alex, it is going to be much more a part of Reddit's business model moving forward, right?
If these AI companies are forced to pay up, I mean, you see OpenAI doing deals with news publishers. I don't think those are really because OpenAI thinks it needs to do them. I think it's more of trying to appease people so that it doesn't have to do the bigger deals. Um, Reddit would like to work with everyone. The problem for Reddit is that when it does these deals, these companies don't like to talk about them. And so you've got this tension between, Reddit being gagged on what it can say and needing to be a public company and tell investors about a material new source of revenue. I don't know how they're going to navigate that going forward. I know that getting the Google news out ahead of the IPO was a huge priority and something that was very contentious between Reddit and Google. The thing is, like, once you set your price, so Reddit has decided, we don't actually know the terms of this deal, obviously, but Reddit has said, 200-ish million over a few years. Is it ever going to get more than that for another one of these deals? That's the problem when you set your price, that's your price. And so is OpenAI, which already scraped Reddit for ChatGPT, going to pay more? Sam Altman's on the board. What kind of conflict does that bring? This is all very messy, and the AI companies would prefer to not be paying. I think when you look at I think you have to kind of separate Google from everyone else in AI because of the weird symbiotic nature that Reddit has with Google. Where Reddit, I should note, is very helpful for Google search results. Google would like to have Reddit in search because it makes search better. But at the same time, Reddit benefits tremendously from being a part of Google search. So I think we really need to wait and see until Reddit does a deal with a company that's not Google. That's my long-winded way of answering your question.
No, I appreciate that. It's like
Yeah.
a necessary kind of evil relationship right
Yeah.
now, right? I mean, competitors in some respect, but obviously you've done a great job laying out the case about how reliant Reddit is on the services and kind of background of Alphabet. Talk to me about any trajectory you see. You've been so well sourced at Snap. You've done outstanding reporting, Alex, for many years. Do you see a bit of a trajectory, any similarities between Reddit and Snap, or any learned lessons from Snap's IPO years ago here at the stock exchange that maybe Steve
Yeah.
Huffman and Co. can learn from?
Well, it's funny. They have the same CFO. So Drew Valero took Snap public in 2017 when you and I were on the floor there together, JD. Um, yeah, I mean, there's a lot of analogies. You've got this company that is finally going public, that wants to be a challenger in social media, that wants to build a scaled ads business, that has this unique pocket of the internet cornered. It's a scale game. At the end of the day, if they're really trying to build a scaled ads business, what we were talking about earlier, Google and Meta have shown that they will make that as hard as possible, and they have more money than any of these companies combined to do it. And so Reddit has to really prove its value in the marketplace. It has to prove that even if a huge percentage of its usage is porn, that it's still a valuable place for marketers. And I think they're early in that journey, and so I would say it's just very early. And it reminds me of Snap in that sense. Snap was very early when it went public, and we've seen them struggle. And if Reddit can pull this together and it can earn this, valuation and this crazy run up we're seeing today in the stock over time, it'll be a great success story. I just think it's the jury is out.
Yeah, of course. And
Yeah,
I always like to say when we have big splashy IPOs, you don't really evaluate the success of an IPO off of day one. We spill a lot of ink. We're going to do that, right? I
yeah,
mean, the indication range was way north of $34 all day. But really, IPO watchers always tell me, let these things breathe, give them 6 months, 9 months, give them a year, right? They're all entering the highway here at different points of the macroeconomic cycle. There's a lot of other factors at play outside of the company itself. To the point of the IPO, Alex, part of what Reddit did this time was put aside, I think it was about 8% of its shares for these unpaid moderators, right? They've really been the backbone. Any of us who have ever spent time on Reddit knows you have this sort of volunteer army that have really been so crucial to the operation. How successful was that approach? I know we've seen similar moves from companies like Airbnb and others to try and reward those really loyal customers. Do we have a sense on how that was received by a lot of these Redditors in the lead up to today?
I haven't seen a comprehensive breakdown. I'm hoping Reddit shares it in terms of the exact amount of appetite. We did see a lot of power users and big moderators publicly posting when this program was going on ahead of today that they weren't going to participate because they felt like it was just too much uncertainty. I'm sure looking at the price right now, they're kicking themselves because you could have sold today. But yeah, I mean, Steve Huffman has said, he's told me and others that he wanted to do this because they want Reddit's power users to participate in the upside of the company. Robinhood had a similar message. The danger there is this is the same company that is Wall Street Bets, right? That kind of dictated the whole GameStop frenzy, which now there's movies about and everyone knows. But Reddit is a very volatile, opinionated community, and there were people on Wall Street Bets talking about shorting the stock, and so they've listed that in their risk factors. It's obviously a very unique thing to Reddit is that they are the platform where this kind of retail squeeze mania began and continues, and so that's a very delicate balance for them is having a good relationship with their power users because you're right they don't pay them. So had the stock cratered today, I think they would have been very on edge about that. But it looks like so far so good.
Yeah, and you tee me up to the next question I had, which had to do with something that Steve Huffman identified in the S1 potential risk factors. You talk about a Wall Street bets, and how do you think, or how closely do you think that particular community can play a role in not just how the IPO goes, today and tomorrow, but long into the future? I mean, do you expect? I mean, I've been on Wall Street bets nearly every day, and this obviously is, understandably so, a top topic of conversation.
Yeah, they can play a huge role. We saw that with GameStop and others. I mean, Reddit is not that huge of a market cap, so it's not something that is immune. It's not a $500 billion company. It's not immune to retail pressure at all. And so That's that's a constituent that I bet that Steve and the rest of Reddit management is watching very closely and wanting to contain and to appease if they can. And I don't know, we should just go check Wall Street Bets after this. I'm really curious what they're saying, but
Go see what happens. I
yeah,
know. He did say
it's
this
definitely
morning.
unique.
He reads it. He says he uses
Yeah,
it. He's on Wall
yeah.
Street Bet.
Yeah, and so yeah, Wall Street Bets has shown it will show no mercy if it deems appropriate. So Reddit's going to have to treat its power users well, and I think they know that.
Yeah, absolutely. My man, it's always great to get your perspective, your context. One final question. I don't even know if you have this answer. What's your favorite subreddit?
What's my favorite subreddit? That's a really good question. You know what? I think that there's several that I check a lot. I'm actually my local one. I use it for local. This is where like I think they have an opportunity to also be like a next door. I use it for my local neighborhood here in Los Angeles. It's actually really valuable for coyote spottings and all that stuff.
Oh, dude, of course. All the things that people are concerned about. Hey, saw this coyote in Runyon Canyon. Watch
Yeah,
out.
yeah,
What? No,
yeah,
but you're right. There is that the local community, if you're tapped into
yeah,
that.
yeah,
Awesome interview. My man, thank you as always.
yeah.
Big
Thanks,
day
man.
here on the floor. Big day for the company. No one better to talk to. Alex Heath, my old friend at The Verge. Thanks, man.